What is good, my man? We are back, week off, getting right back into it as we're going to grind through the summer here. It's really, there's a reason they call it the dog days. You know what I mean? The news cycle has been kind of slow. The players aren't giving us the material we need to keep talking about them in the off season, man.
Hey,
Maybe it's a good thing, but
man, they were there for a while. I felt like local news radio talking about all the shit the Chiefs were getting into there for a while. So kind of feels nice not to talk about jail or some shit now.
no kidding, no kidding. I almost wish our podcast was a hybrid Royals show so we could talk about how well the boys of blue are playing, man. It's been awesome watching
Yeah.
some ball here in KC, but Chief show, baby. We're going to keep it KC Chiefs. So the boys made their way out to Washington. We'll just kind of start there. Went out there, second time in a row. I wonder if it
Yep.
was like any more or less special for them. I know the guys who have been there before or had not been there before was probably a pretty cool experience, but for the guys that have been there before, it was pretty. I mean, it had to be pretty like, okay, go through the motion kind of thing. I would think anyway. I don't know. How
Yeah.
do you feel about that?
Yeah. Travis got his moment to get up there on the podium and say a little quick little thing to the people. And the president got to put on the roll cage, the Chiefs roll cage there for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, what's going to be exciting is going back again next year and being able to do it again. So that's what I'm looking for here.
No, absolutely. It'll be a different, maybe a potentially different regime in there too. So that could be exciting for those guys, right? Get to meet a new president potentially. We'll see what happens in November, but a lot of cool stuff they were doing there. Travis Kelce obviously getting the opportunity to come up to the mic was pretty funny. I think I saw that video like the entirety of Monday scrolling through social media,
Yeah.
catching up from the weekend. But yeah, a lot of fun getting to see our guys come out there on a national stage in the nation's capital and just kind of strut around the White House. It's almost like, it's honestly, it's like the last thing you do to celebrate a Super Bowl, right? You go take a visit to the White House. That's like the cap on the celebration, I guess right before you actually get the ring. So the rings will be the final bow on top of it all, but that's really the last, big public event that you go do, right? After the parade, after you kind of do all of your media tours, right? We saw Kelsey and Mahomes get out there on the Tonight Show and that sort of stuff. So really it's just ring ceremony and then it's reset the clock, time to punch in and grab another ring.
Yeah, I'm fired up. Like you said, it's kind of that capstone moment for the players at least, and then that ring ceremony, man, that's gonna be a special one for all of us.
Oh yeah. No, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what that thing's gonna look like with 4 Lombardis on it potentially. Man, that's just a crazy to even be able to say that. Watching the Chiefs your whole life, and now in a 5-year span, we've collected 3. Pretty nuts. So it's no secret the Chiefs are in limbo with their lease right now. Kansas is really pushing to get the Chiefs over across the state line, and a lot of funding and different bills are kind of getting pushed around in Kansas legislation to make this a reality. What we saw over there in Kansas to kind of build up what they have with sporting, with the Legend Shopping District and everything, the Speedway, everything they have going on over there. They had a really large collection of star bonds come in so that they could acquire this funding. That's what's kind of getting pushed right now through Kansas legislation to make this a reality. What are your thoughts there, man? Because it seems like every day goes by, it's becoming more and more of a reality because Missouri missed out on their opportunity to seal the deal.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the KC metro area in general, Liberty, Lee Summit, Blue Springs, those areas are getting huge. And the Overland Park area is absolutely a part of that, and probably the furthest distance away from Kansas City, and just growing into Kansas City and growing out away from Kansas City as well. So really, for Kansas to not make a push here would be foolish. They didn't have a choice. It's really now or never for them and for Missouri at that point, to be honest with you.
Right.
So to add the Chiefs would be monumental, to add them to that portion of Kansas City. Again, I mean, where I stand on this. I don't want to see the team go, and really it's personal reasons for me. I'm the Northeast point. That's the opposite direction for me. I want them to go. So I don't want them to go to Kansas so that I don't have to drive an hour 15 or an hour 30 to get just to the stadium and then sit there for 45 minutes to try to get in. So there's my personal reasons there. They go into that, obviously. But the other end of that, I truly believe Arrowhead is where the Chiefs belong and where the Chiefs should be, whether the Royals are still there, at Kauffman or not. I believe that, we've made history at Arrowhead. Not that the Royals haven't made history at Kauffman, but I view Arrowhead as a much more special and a monumental place than I do Kauffman, and that's where I believe the Chiefs need to be. And whether that's renovations that go into the stadium, whether that's pushed off for a couple of years, 5 years, whatever it may be, I truly believe that's where the Chiefs belong. And I truly believe the greater Kansas City area wants to see them in Arrowhead anyways. I think there's that small push of the Overland Park folks that really want them to in Kansas, and I don't blame them. But they are a minority for wanting the Chiefs in Kansas. And so to see them stay in Missouri, I think is a bigger deal for Kansas City than it is for the state of Kansas itself.
Well, I think, you and I both being season ticket holders, one scary angle to this is that, basically any seat licenses that are held by any of the ticket holders, those kind of get wiped, and you almost got to refresh, what that's going to look like. Prices likely go up being the first year out at the new stadium in a potential move. Just that aspect alone definitely has me kind of, anxious about what the Chiefs are going to do, I guess is probably the best word for it. But when you look at the history behind Arrowhead, the atmosphere that it's known for, that's not going to carry over.
No.
Necessarily, right?
I don't think
it's going to be
either.
something. It's something that was accumulated and earned over time at that stadium and built on that culture, mostly during the Schottenheimer era in the 90s, that kind of really turned that tailgate culture into what it is today. And we saw that evolution over the years to where it became, I mean, they don't say the Chiefs had the loudest fan base. They typically say Arrowhead is the loudest stadium in the NFL.
Right.
So, with that being the case, those are all things that potentially could be lost, that true home field advantage, especially when you look at, is it going to be a dome? Because that outdoor stadium that we had, that was a huge difference maker in our divisional matchup our wild card matchup against the Miami Dolphins, right?
Absolutely.
Those things matter come January and February. So I would just hate to lose those advantages of our team being able to play in the elements and take on any challenge as you move through the playoffs, because you're already playing in those elements in your home stadium.
Yeah, and to kind of tap into that a little bit, and not to dig at my friends over there in the Kansas side, but I kind of question, and I'm a little weary about the atmosphere that they would bring to Arrowhead as well. Not that Missouri would just cut off and quit going to Chiefs games, but I mean, for instance, guys like me, I probably would not renew my season tickets just because of the fact I said earlier how far of a drive that is every home game for me. So Kansas City is a very, hardworking, gritty city where, people work their ass off 60 hours a week and then go to the game on Sunday and show up for a noon game at 6 a.m. and don't get home until, 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Right. And I kind of wonder if that would transition over to Kansas if that were the case, right? And so obviously some planning would have to go in place as far as how the stadium's built, the parking lot. Is that going to be welcomed over there in Kansas? But also, is the crowd, it's going to be a new crowd. I mean, it honestly will be. It's not going to be the same people. So is that new crowd, whether that's, it's 25% folks that didn't go to the game but now go to the game, are those folks ready to play that kind of that style of ball, right? Are you going to show up that early in the morning? Are you going to stay the whole game? That kind of seems like a crowd over there where, we're down 10 points going into halftime, and it's like, all right, let's cut this out and get home and watch the rest of the game from the basement because we're only 10 or 15 minutes away. You know what I mean? Honestly, I'm not trying to throw any shade at anybody over there, but I think there's a different. There's a little bit of a culture shock. I think what we would get out of the Chiefs fans over there, if the stadium was over there.
It's hard to say too, right? Because the folks that are going to games today at Arrowhead, like it's right off of I-70, and if they put it in this plot out there in Wyandotte, like it wouldn't be far off of I-70 either. But if you look at what's on the other side of I-70 for both of those locations, I think you're looking at a greater population on the Missouri side where it's at right now. Right? 100%. You just mentioned it. Lee Summit, Blue Springs, those Liberty, those areas are a lot bigger than what you're going to get out there on the Kansas side near KCK and Bonner and those places. They're just not as big. So, it's going to be tougher for folks to make the travel and make the drive to get over there. I mean, even just looking at, where some of the fans would be coming from south of the river. You know what I mean? Like, you're traveling a much greater distance. Any potential moves. That's why I'm such a big fan of downtown stadiums, is because it is centrally located. So, I mean, for, to your point about the Royals, in my mind, that's the perfect place to put them.
Yeah, agreed.
Because of how centrally located it would be for the entire city. I mean, if you look at the downtown center, everything is a hub coming out of there, and each spoke going in every direction has its own, set of towns that kind of branch back into the downtown area.
Yep.
Honestly, Arrowhead and Kaufman, where they sit right now, I mean, they're what, 5-6 miles from where downtown sits. So still pretty centrally located, much more so than what the plot would be out there on the Kansas side. But, we have probably 3-4 years before we get any real answers. And I think that's the most frustrating part about it as a fan, is just how slow things move from, a legislative standpoint in getting these funds and making the decision and having the vote, counting the votes, getting to the point where it's official. That's why everyone who is lobbying for Jackson County voters to sign, that's why they were pushing so hard to say, hey, we probably aren't going to get another opportunity to do this before the lease goes up in 2030, just because of how slow government tends to move in general.
Yep. And last point here before we move on, Dan, the only thing I'll say is, as things move on in the next couple of years, like you said, I hope once August hits, late July hits, I hope that the Chiefs can kind of bottle that and keep that in the front office. Whereas once that time frame hits, July, August, all the way through February, it's time for football, and business on the field is absolutely a priority for all of Kansas City and for everybody that's on the field over what that situation comes to. So, if there's conversations going on, I hope the press isn't talking about where the stadium's going to be in the next couple of years. And I hope the Chiefs can keep a kind of a lid on that and keep that in house, and so we can focus on football. So I don't want all the extra bullshit going into the season, kind of how we've already started this off season. So that's where the focus has got to be for sure.
Absolutely. I think Andy Reid does a really good job of keeping the focus on the field and the product that they're going to put out there every, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those are all the days we're playing this year on the schedule.
Yeah.
So he's pretty good about making sure game day, whatever day of the week that might fall on, lines up with the utmost preparation and focus on what the task is at hand. And I know he'll be looking forward to all of those challenges anytime those questions are posed. The last thing we'll touch on before we wrap it up for the night, real quick here, the new kickoff rules have passed. Competition committee passed it. They're still kicking from the 35-yard line, but they changed some of the structure to make it a little more conducive for kick returns. So there's a landing zone. If it falls past a certain area, then a receiving team can return the ball. There's not the fair catch rule they had last year. There's all these little tweaks essentially to make it a situation where somebody's going to be returning a kick ultimately every time they kick it off, and it's going to be a way that's safe so that the league and the NFLPA can actually stand behind what they're doing. And apparently it was really successful, and I can't remember which league it was. It was like the USFL or the XFL, one of those two leagues before they merged kind of pioneered this style of kick. But there's been talks about strategy. Finally, we're getting some like insight on what's going to go on from that standpoint. Dave Toub, one of the best minds in the NFL from a special team standpoint. He's been with Andy Reid for quite some time now. He's kind of talked about potential for removing Harrison Butker from kickoffs. Has nothing to do with his speech, of course, but everything to do with him replacing that kicker with a defensive player who's capable of kicking that ball off, but also capable of making a tackle. I think we've all seen what happens when a kicker tries to make a tackle. Usually they end up looking like a fool.
Yeah, we're getting hurt.
They're going to actually put someone back there who can lay the wood, and Justin Reid, if anyone can, it's him.
Yeah, no doubt. What a special player we can plug in that position. Whereas, the other 31 teams in the league might be thinking the same thing, but they're like, man, who the hell can we throw out there that can get the ball down the other side of the field? Where Justin Reid, he's got a freaking boot on his leg, man.
Yeah,
I like this change, and I see it. I think the NFL did a great job with this, and you don't hear me say this often. Whereas player safety was accounted for, but also the product on the field, as far as a fan perspective, that was accounted for as well. Whereas kickoffs for the last 5 years have absolutely sucked. It's a dead play every single time there's a kickoff, essentially. It's like 90% of kicks aren't returned or something like that, 92% or something like that.
Sheesh.
Where now we're able to gain another play as a fan, and special teams play such a crucial role in football, and so it's going to be exciting to see adding another play into the game, and see how teams like our coaching staffs can utilize this extra play. Andy Reid does a great job of this. When there's a rule change, he's great at adjusting to it and making it benefit his team. And then two, like I've already mentioned, it's nice to be able to change up the game a little bit. Instead of Patrick Mahomes starting from the 25 every single drive, it's going to change where it's lined up on the hash, where he's positioned on the field as far as yardage. And so it's going to be interesting and be able to change some things for the offense as well, so that they can go out there with a different mindset and have a little more firepower or a little more range on the playbook. As far as, we're established on the left hash is here. We're on the 35. These are the 7 plays that we want to run if we're in between the 30 and 35 on the left hash as soon as we get the ball on first down, right? So I think that's just another way that Andy's going to be able to exploit this rule. So I think the NFL did a great job here.
Absolutely. I mean, from a strategy standpoint, even just looking at, because the hashes matter, right? How you call your plays and how you run your script at the beginning of the game matters. So, from a strategy standpoint, there's going to be a lot of new wrinkles, I think, that are going to be put in offenses across the league. And if anyone can do it well, it's our man, Andy Reid. But, from a strategy standpoint as well, it's like, you're now, as the defensive side, in a position where you can create game-changing plays from a turnover standpoint, right? When these guys aren't returning these kicks as much, it limits the opportunity for them to fumble the ball, muff the punt, muff the kick, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
And so these guys are going to be coming in a lot quicker, a lot sooner to get to the place where they're going to be kicking the ball. And ultimately, you're put in a position where you can make more of those game-changing special teams plays as a gunner, as one of those special teams players, and really flip the game in your favor, right? Whenever those kinds of things happen on a punt or a kick, I mean, not only does it give you an opportunity to change the scoreboard, but just the body language and the momentum of those players
Yes.
typically changes because it's like such a sudden change where you're expecting to get the ball or you're expecting to kick the ball, and you can just get this either jolt of energy if you feed off of your defense or your special teams unit that went out and forced that turnover, or you can just get the wind sucked right out of you
Yep.
if your guy muffs the punt and you lose it, and now all of a sudden they got the ball inside the 20 and your back's against the wall. So, just from a strategy standpoint, like you were saying, there's a lot of new opportunities that are going to come from this. And why the hell wouldn't you put one of your defensive players, especially a player that's as talented, as skilled, and as intelligent as Justin Reid is,
Yep.
any of those strategy standpoints that Andy Reid and Dave Toub put into the special teams unit, if Justin Reid's the one kicking that ball off, there's no one I trust more to execute at a high level and lead that unit than him. So I think that's really cool to be able to, because he does that on the defensive side today, right? He's one of the
Yep.
leaders on the defense, and
Yep.
there's a reason they were a top 5 unit last year. So it's going to be really cool to see what this special teams unit can do, especially with the minds that we have on our coaching staff, on the Chiefs coaching staff. So I'm excited. And then apparently that rugby guy, he has some potential for being in there too. Reese Zammit, I think is how you
Yeah.
pronounce that.
I don't even
So
try, bro.
we might get some funky kicks out of him where he's laying the ball on the laces and kicking it, like that. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with that special teams unit? But I think that adds a really cool wrinkle that our team the Chiefs are going to be able to exploit.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. And that's a great point there with being able to flip the field. I mean, how many times do you see on a special teams play where the kicking team, whether it's a punt or a kick, there's a muff on the other end on the receiving team, and the kicking team is able to get that ball back? I mean, just
And
a
then you're
just a
just sick
quick
watching that.
scenario.
That's your team.
Yeah, exactly. But you're so fired up. I mean, taking me back to the Houston game back in the playoffs back in 2019, was it? Where
Yes, sir.
Justin Reid was actually the guy for Houston who took the fake punt, and Sorensen caught him and tackled him. Just a surefire tackle, and flipped the field there on our way from a down 24 and flipped the
That
game
is
there, man.
so funny, man. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
My favorite part about that game, and I tell people, in my top 3 games that I've actually seen in person, the Texans divisional game falls in that realm. I think you got to put the 13-second game in there, and then probably the AFC Championship game against the Titans, just because going to the first Super Bowl that I've seen in my lifetime, there was nothing like that celebration at the end. My
Yep.
favorite
Yep.
part about that Texans game was you and I standing in the stands, defeated, freezing our ass off, just watching our team get bullied on the field. I look over at you, and right in that moment, you look at me, and the only thing that was said was, you said it. You said, "We've scored 28 and a quarter before." And then wouldn't you know it, that special teams play happens moments later. We put points on the board, and then we didn't look back from there. So a
Yep.
lot of fun, obviously, getting to create those kinds of memories off of plays like that. And I love that the NFL is bringing more opportunity to the game to make that happen. Trey, my man, I think we got ourselves a show. We can put a bow on it until next week. Always love getting on here with you guys. Quick shout out to our producer Bryce as well. Make sure you check him out on any of his channels. He has a lot of fun stuff coming out about the Knicks. Bryce, you want to jump in here even? I know you got a Giants show too where you're talking about those kinds of things. So go ahead and plug it up.
I'm trying to get my setup all set here. Wait, give me a second. One second. It's too dark in here. There we go. What's going on?
There he is.
Hey, listen. If you're into any of that stuff, probably not. I've never met a Chiefs Knicks fan. But if you happen to be that one person out there, please follow me. Social media is right there. And it's a pleasure to work with these two guys. There's really no one that I know that knows more about the Chiefs than these two guys. And they're the only two Chiefs fans that I know. So there you go.
Hey, we'll take that. We'll take that, my man. Yeah, you're honorary member of Chiefs Kingdom. You know, it was fun kind of seeing you get a little excited and happy about the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl even. So that was fun.
Whoa. Relax there. I don't
There
know.
was a little bit of, you were happy. Don't lie. Don't lie.
Strictly for you two. That's it. I wasn't happy.
Well, we appreciate you, man.
I wasn't happy.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
Dan and Trey.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll be back at it next week. Appreciate everybody for listening. Make sure you follow the show at @thefastest_40 X IG. You know where to find us. Handles are always on the YouTube videos if you're following along with us there. So appreciate everybody. We'll see you next week.
Let's go Chiefs.